Hi everyone. So the first book that I chose to talk over this week is Balloons Over Broadway. This book is about the beginning of the Macy's parade, and it starts with giving us a background of the puppeteer that started it all, Tony Sarg, and how even as a child he loved to learn how things moved. And here it explains how his father asked him to do a chore, and he didn't want to get out of bed at 6:30 a.m. So he rigged all these pulleys. He put out the food the night before, and at 6:30 when his alarm clock went off, he pulled the lever. It opened the door, and he got to stay in bed, and the chickens still got to be fed. And that just shows how clever he was, even as a child. And the author then moves on to Tony as an adult, and here they talk about how he moved to London to pursue his career, and he realized that marionette dolls were no longer being created, and so he started creating his own marionette dolls. Once that became explosive, he moved to New York City to start performing on Broadway. Once in New York City, Macy's contacted him and asked him to create a series of puppets for their holiday window, and it was called Wondertown. And it was such a success that Macy's asked him to do an even bigger thing, to create a parade for Macy's employees. And in 1924, on Thanksgiving Day, the first Macy's parade happened, and there were balloons and animals and wild animals and all types of things, and it was a success, and because of such a great success, Macy's decided to continue to do it. But eventually, the children were getting frightened by the live animals, and so Macy's asked Tony, hey, can you do something about it? And so he wanted to do something puppet-like. So he contacted a bunch of people, he asked if they could make it, and he made these that are designed after Indonesian rod puppets, which it looks like this. And this was now the parade, and it was a huge success. However, as the parade became more successful, it became bigger and bigger. And so there's people in the back that can't really see the puppets going on. So he decided that there has to be some way to get the marionette puppet into the sky. So he contacted the company again. He added things like this where it was almost like a balloon. He had them use different materials. He filled them also with helium and added ropes so that the balloons could move around. And then, this is one of my favorite pictures from this book. There, and it says down here, and here's the upside down marionette. And I think it's just watching it move and things is just great. And here's some more pictures of them. And they worked so perfectly, and everybody loved them. And then one of my favorite quotes in this book is this one down here, and it says, it was a parade the New Yorkers would never forget. And then for years now, I mean, Macy's has always put on a parade with the same stuff. And every Thanksgiving morning, there's the parade. And so I really think that this book, it teaches all about something that kids have either heard about the parade or have seen the parade, and it gives us the story about the man that started it all. And I think that this book was picked for this award because of its engaging visual presentation. It's so engaging, as you saw with the pictures. As well as its engaging language, and the facts were given in a very clear, organized manner. And it had very good supporting features like this. It says that this newspaper right here was the original advertisement from the New York Times in 1933. And I just think that is a really cool added element to this book. The second book that I read that I really liked was Giant Squid. And this book begins in just a way that I hadn't ever seen before, and I just loved it so much. How it begins talking about something suspenseful and something deep down inside the ocean, and how you rely, and it gives you little clues, but it relies solely on small little clues to find out what lurks beneath the ocean. And then after this suspenseful upbringing, then it has the title page. And I just love how it had that suspense build, and then the title page opens. Like, the book hasn't even started yet, but you're just so excited about it. And then we start learning about the giant squid, and here are its tentacles, 30 feet long. And we have how it gets its prey, and it has how it has its prey, and it wraps around it, and then it moves it towards its beak-like mouth, and how its mouth has a tongue with slicers on it that slices and dices its food so that it can digest it easier. And its eye, and it mentions that it's the biggest eye on the planet, and it explains why it's the biggest eye, so that it can see in its dark habitat flickers of light, such as the sperm whale, which is its predator. And it tells us how it swims, that when it sees its sperm whale, it sucks in water, and then it pushes it out so that it can get away fast. And then it talks to us about how it changes color, and they're not really sure why it changes color, and that this giant squid has so many questions surrounding it. And then it talks about the baby giant squid, and how when they're born, they're just 2 inches long, and they're so tiny, and how they have to swim very fast to get away. And then here, I love this, because they have in the corner, this book is filled with suspense, a suspenseful picture of a predator. And then here they have it, and here's the barracuda, and now they have to quickly get away, and so then they start explaining, but they build suspense. They don't say anything on these lines. You open this up, there's even this pull out, and there's the squid, but they still have not said anything. It's gone, and they're explaining how its ink just helps it get away from safety. And I just loved how this book taught so much about the giant squid. And I really think that this book was chosen because of its extremely descriptive, engaging language. Like, it uses such descriptive words, and its excellent display of visuals, like, every time that it talks about something. Or I really especially like how the squid never truly is fully in the picture. It's only a portion of it, which shows that the squid is just massive. And the pictures in the back, this one right here, is such a good supporting feature, because this is the only one where you see the entire squid, and it's obviously small on this, but it explains what everything is. So here you have the eyes, and explains a little paragraph about the eyes, and you can see the whole squid here. And I think that every child would love to sit down and read this book. So one of the books that I fell in love with over these past few weeks was Freight Train by Donald Cruz. And I think I love this book just because it's so small and short, but it teaches so many important things. So it starts out like this with just a blank page, and then it starts to describe what each train is. So here we have a caboose, a tank car, a hopper car over here, and it's just teaching what cars are, but it's also teaching what the colors are. So it says here that the red caboose at the back, and where it is, orange tank car next. So we know that this is the back. Yellow hopper car, and it goes through a bunch of colors and a bunch of different types of trains, and as well as movement. This is one of probably my favorite photos in this book. is them showing how the train is moving, because it actually looks like it's moving, and it just has a simple word, moving. And it also shows, what this is called, and you could also use this book. I realized that you could use this book to talk somewhat about shapes. So you could do here, this is a rectangle. The wheels are circles. You can use, and then it's just such a great book. The next book that I also fell in love with was A Sick Day for Amos McGee. When I first read this book, I saw it not just as like a story, but I saw it presenting friendship to children, and how Amos is such a good friend to. Every day he gets up and he goes to the zoo and he hangs out with all his animal friends, and then one day they don't show up, and the animals get very concerned, like, where's their friend? And so they go and they get on a bus, and they go and find their friend. And I think that this book, you could use it to, and they go and they make him feel better because he's sick. And you can definitely use this book to talk to kids about friendship. And then you could add something after you've read it talking about friendship, like, how are you going to be a good friend today? Are you going to be like the animals, and are you going to go visit your sick friend and try to make them feel happy because they're missing out on something? Or are you going to pick something up for your friend? And I love the idea of doing that as a teacher one day. And the last book that I want to look at is George Washington's Teeth, and how it teaches stuff about history that in such an engaging way. I loved this book because it teaches children all about the history of George Washington. It starts with a little excerpt about his teeth. But it starts with the Revolutionary War and how George went on with this. But it also adds a funny element about how everywhere he goes, he lost a tooth. Here it is, George Washington rushed into town. The dentist heard his shout, hold still, gave a yank, and a rotten tooth popped out. And it just how you go through the entire book, and new things happen. Here he goes to New York preparing for a fierce attack. But he also lost a tooth again. Or one of my favorite scenes was this one, where it says, poor George had only 2 teeth the day the votes came in. And that just says, oh, here he is, he's becoming a president, but he still only has 2 teeth. And here, talking about how he had to have cotton balls put in his mouth to make his mouth not be sunken in because of his lack of teeth. And in the end, it also shows us the creation of his false teeth, and adding that element where I feel like that never really gets discussed. His false teeth, like, oh yeah, he had false teeth, but then that's kind of it. But this just like shows him how much he actually wanted false teeth and how much effort they put into it. And they also have this supplementary element, this timeline of George Washington's life here, and how he did all of these things. And here it shows what the teeth actually looked like. And it was just a great, captivating book to teach kids about history.